welcome to you. If you're a returning viewer, hello, good to have you back. If you're new, give us a wave. We always like new people here on teissTalk. All the teissTalks, of course, are archived on our website, teiss.co.uk, which you can access. You can see all of our 3 years, maybe 2.5 years, going back. They're all there, but you're joining us live, and that is definitely the way to be. Great to have you all here with us. If you listen to the podcast version of this, by the way, do tune in to the actual real live video version, which you can see on the Teiss website, teiss.co.uk. You'll get the full unexpurgated experience, the full 45 minutes. And you can see us all here. We've got a fantastic panel to be talking about our topic today. Hello to everybody who's in the chat. That chat window there is yours to do as you see fit, libel and obscenity laws in your local jurisdiction permitting. So please do drop us a line in there. If you've got any questions as we go along, got any comments, got any thoughts, do drop them in there. There's also the Q&A tab there, and we can receive your questions. We'll put them to our panelists as we go along. Our Teiss Goblin, by the way, who beavers away tirelessly in the background, keeping this awful show on the road, has just informed us that her dog is having puppies soon. So I'm going to give the coveted teissTalk mug away to whoever comes out with the best teissTalk puppy name for our Teiss Goblin's new brood of puppies. If you can do a tech security related one, you're probably a shoe-in for the mug, but any particularly good puppy names would be great to hear from you. Best puppy name wins a Teiss mug. We cannot, of course, guarantee that those puppy names will make it to the actual puppies themselves. You have a certain amount of discretion here at teissTalk. So any of you who are thinking of doing puppy face or something, we do exercise discretion. We are able to filter them out. But yes, best puppy name wins a mug. How about that for a little prize for you all? Fantastic to have you all with us. It's great to have you all along. We're going to be discussing on today's top teissTalk. We've got our crystal balls out. Sorry. I've made myself laugh there. We've got our collective crystal ball out, is probably a better way of putting it. We're going to be looking at threat trends in 2023 and beyond, how uncertain times, it says here, affect cyber risk. And we are in, let's face it, deeply uncertain times at the moment. Probably a trend that we just have to get used to. We've got a great panel to be talking to us about all this with us. We've got Todd Wade, who's Chief Information Security Officer at Lloyd's Intelligence. We've got Kevin Cohen, who's Professor of Cybersecurity at Ulster University, and Jamie Moles, who's Senior Technical Marketing Manager at Extra Hop. They will be joining us all in a second. As I say, the Q&A tab is there for you guys to hopefully put all of your questions and your comments in. And somebody has already gone for Puppy McPuppyface. Yeah, Bob Schrunkle. I like Bob Schrunkle. That's not a bad name for a puppy. Any other puppy names, do stick them in there. And hello to all of you. Hello to James. Hello to Ugo. Hello to Kevin joining us in the chat channel there. I'm going to be joined by our guests, hopefully fairly soon. Otherwise, it's just me wanging on for 40 minutes. And we all know how that works out. But there we are. We're welcoming Jamie, first of all. Well done. You're first over the line in terms of getting your webcam operating. How are you doing, Jamie? How's it going?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Looking forward to the weekend.
Yes.
Week.
Anything particularly planned for the weekend, by the way?
Rest and relaxation, I think.
Nice.
And probably have to do things around the house. You know, the wife will give me jobs.
Oh, I see. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Clive suggested Cerberus puppies for the puppy name. Cerberus. Okay. Yeah. And Max Johnson suggested doggy. Well done, Max. Thanks. Really digging deep in the inspiration pool there. Todd, hello to you. How are you doing? And what have you got planned for the weekend?
I'm doing well. Just spending time with some friends and family. It's going to be pretty chilled out this weekend.
Fantastic. And Kevin, how are you doing? And what you got planned for the weekend?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'd like to suggest Doggy McDogface as a tradition. I'm doing good. Yeah, I just hopefully get some outside stuff done at the weekend. Yeah.
Good stuff. Fantastic for all of you. The Teiss Goblin has chimed in. Not sure about these names, Jeff. Don't worry, they're not mandatory. We're not going to come around and stick collars on your dogs with the names on there. But, yeah, we do need some more inspirational names. As I say, we'll try and think of some cybersecurity names. We're keeping one, a Teiss mascot. Oh, that's lovely. Fantastic. So there's a question, isn't there? If you name the puppies when they're born, but you give them away, do they keep the names, or do the new owners get to give them new names? No? Jamie says no. Okay.
We got a puppy at the beginning of COVID. We had a good COVID dog, like a lot of people did, and she had a name that the previous owners had, but she'd only had it for like 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. So we chose a new one, and she is now Lottie.
Oh, and what was the previous name? Just to complete this thought.
I can't remember. I haven't a clue. Nothing important. It's the new name that matters.
Well, I suppose that's part of the deal, isn't it? Particularly if you've got kids, is you can spend a good few weeks thinking of different names, and obviously, saying no to the ones that don't work. Max says Truman the Terrier. I like Truman the Terrier. That's my favourite one so far. teissTalk says they have a kennel club name, but the new owners choose the actual dog's name. Oh, good for them. Fantastic. All right, we'll try and come up with some good Thai suggestions to give to your new folks out there. So we're going to be talking about, obviously, future trends, which is always just an interesting thing because sometimes you get them wrong, sometimes you get them right. But before we do that, there's a news piece that we picked out we thought was quite interesting in terms of this, which is an article in Forbes by the august Tony Bradley, who it says on his contributor bio, I cover all things tech and the impact tech has on everyday life. This is a new report highlights concerning trends for cyber warfare. This is based on a report from ARMIS, the ARMIS State of Cybersecurity, Cyber Warfare and Trends Report 22-23. There is a link in the article for people to download that report. And some interesting stats came out of this. I was looking through the, where did I put my notes? Looking through this. Says one of the ones that caught my eye was, here we go, the lowest ranking security element in the eyes of IT professionals is preventing nation state attacks, it says here, 22%. Todd, did you see that? And what do you make of that preventing nation state attacks doesn't seem to be particularly high on their agenda?
I think it's pretty spot on. I think it's definitely not high on people's agendas. They're thinking about stopping attacks, but they're not specifically singling out nation state attacks. So I would say that they're thinking about how to reduce the risk, but they're not focusing on that per se.
Do you think that they're focusing on preventing attacks, but they don't sort of split out nation state attacks from those because that's not, they're not bothered in a way whether it's nation state or not. They're just trying to, they all look the same, so let's just try and prevent against them all. Absolutely.
If you get hit by a ransomware attack, I don't think it really matters where it's coming from. You're still going to be impacted by that. Now, that's obviously some sectors are going to be very different. But I think for the average company, they're just thinking about reducing the threats, not necessarily thinking about a nation state.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Todd, we should say your book was out fairly recently. There's a chance to plug it and tell us how it's going.
Yes, this book is targeted towards executives. It's a non-technical book on all the psychological methods that cyber criminals employ for personal and for business. Really well received so far. British Computer Society is the publisher, and anyone's looking for some tools would be. I think they would get some value reading it.
Yeah, good stuff. We'll try and put a link into the chat for that, if indeed we're allowed to do. I'm not sure we're allowed to endorse such things on teissTalk. Mind you, it hasn't stopped me in the past. So, Laurie Gibbett says Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the puppy clan. That is my favourite so far. That is definitely in the lead for puppy names so far. Jamie, can I come to you on this? Just following up on what Todd said. He's right though. There's certain sectors that presumably should be or could be taking APT stuff, and nation state stuff more seriously. If you're in critical national infrastructure, for example,
Yeah. So one of the things we need to recognize here is there is a kind of a crossover between nation state attackers and criminal gangs. We know that a lot of the ransomware attacks have been initiated by, should we say, nation-supported groups coming out of North Korea and Russia and Ukraine. So if I was Lockheed Martin, or if I was Thales, or as one of the other major defense organizations, nation state attackers would be right at the top of my list of concerns, because I know full well that Russia and China and North Korea, the axis of evil, if you like, want my secrets. So I'm going to be concerned about that. If I'm Warburton's, the bread and crumpet making company, I might be at risk of a ransomware attack, but I'm not at risk of Putin stealing my recipe for crumpets. So I'm not going to be concerned about nation state attackers. I'm going to be concerned about ransomware attackers. But of course, there is the crossover between those groups. So am I under attack from a nation state, or am I under attack from a ransomware? Do I care? Does it stop? I mean, attribution has always been one of the most difficult things about dealing with attacks from the outside. If I can tell the board I was attacked by North Korea, that might be nice. What are they going to do about it? Nothing. Does it influence my defense strategies in any ways? Maybe a little bit, but does it change anything to know that as a bread maker, I'm being attacked by a ransomware group associated with the nation state? That's a very different story to if I'm the the CISO of a defense contractor or a very significant federal organization who are definitely going to be targeted by nation state adversaries.
Yeah. Interesting. Stuart's commented in the chat, are people not taking nation state attacks seriously because for the average company to defend against them, they simply can't? That's a good point. I also think, by the way, Putin's Crumpets is a fantastic puppy name. Just saying that. Kevin, there's another stat I wanted to pick up on from this with you. And we'll throw ahead. We'll return to this topic a bit later on in our sort of future 2023 threats. It says here 64%, so 2/3-ish, of IT and security professionals surveyed, because obviously part of this, they did a survey, forget the name of the company, but they did a survey of about 6,000 people, different verticals. 64%, 2/3 of them, IT and security professionals, agree with the statement, the war in Ukraine has created a greater threat of cyber warfare. So Kevin, no sort of surprises there, I suppose, but obviously when it first came out, there was a lot of news about the sort of cyber potential for the Ukraine conflict. Yeah. How's it bedded in on the ground, and are those guys, those 2/3, right to still be concerned about it?
Well, still be concerned, but actually Ukraine has done really well. Actually, we kind of, to some degrees, overestimated Russia's potential in this arena. But of course, Ukraine has been supported in a large way by Microsoft, again, and whatever their infrastructure. It is, and I'd also seen again about companies having changing strategy and holding back projects which they would have otherwise rolled out because of the Ukraine conflict again. So in certain sectors, again, like we said, it has opened up. But again, I mein, the risk has become more pronounced now, and companies, of course, have to be whatever on their guard against this. But again, just like to wreck everything, of course, if you were targeted, again, so if you are the Taluses of this world and whatever, and you're targeted, it's, of course, you've got to do everything you can. Your systems, again, you presume those systems have enterprise grade hardware and systems everywhere as such. But if you're targeted, you really have little hope in life. Because, every so often, of course, I say maybe I'm professor of cybersecurity, and then a young person will go, oh, so then can you hack me? And of course, I go in my head, well, no, if you use your iPhone properly, I haven't got a hope. I mean, but again, so what do you mean by hack? But can I find eventually, if I spend my resources to get in to compromise some of your accounts, just a specific one, of course. Yeah. Of course, even someone with no technical skills, they will eventually befriend you some way on Facebook or befriend you on Instagram or do this there, send you here to something else. And then you're snookered again on this part of it again. Sorry. So again, you just don't want to be targeted.
Yeah. Yes, that's the ideal, not to be targeted. Well, as I said in the chat, understand, going back to Stuart's point, I think, understand smaller firms can't do much about them. However, it makes the BCP, business continuity process, I suppose is what that means, resilience frameworks, that much more important. So that appropriate backup arrangements and knowledge is key within the firm. Good point, Razza. Thanks for that. By the way, Todd, I said you were CISO for Lloyd's Intelligence, but people may not know what Lloyd's Intelligence is or what they do. Do you want to just let us know what the firm does?
Sure. We're one of the largest marine intelligence organizations in the world. So if you think about it, any information regarding the marine industry, boats, what's on boats, where boats are going, is fed into our platform. And so governments use us, legal law firms use us, and boat owners use us as an example. And that, like, it's a lot of data coming through our systems. Yeah.
Because people don't realize, I mean, maritime traffic is tracked. Well, there's obviously the website you can sort of track it all on, but the immense amount of data and what do you call it, telematics or whatever telemetry coming out of all of that stuff. So you guys sort of wrangle it all. Is that how that works?
Absolutely. I mean, law enforcement use I'm sure all the major law enforcements will use the platform as well, because they're tracking ships. They want to know what's on the ships. They're looking for nefarious activity, actors, which makes obviously us a target for this.
Particularly, I'd say, I mean, North Korea, for those who don't know, North Korea is obsessed with shipping, because one of the main ways North Korea gets around sanctions, apparently, is putting ships in and out and loading and offloading them and so on. So it'd be interesting. But Todd, from that perspective, we were talking there about nation state attacks and people taking them seriously / not, or paying attention / not. Not giving you any trade secrets, but from Lloyd's Intelligence point of view, how do you deal with that? Are you taking the approach of just dealing with it in the same way you do everything else, or are you particularly focused nation state particular thing, or
I you dealing with a nation state act, if you view it as a viable threat, then you will put that into your risk calculus. So as your risk profile changes, and so it kind of puts a framework in like what additional steps we need to put in place to bring your risk down. But you definitely, if you do identify that as a particular risk, you will need to put that in and think about how you're going to address that risk in your company.
Yeah. Jamie, there's another thing I pulled out of this this article, the survey that they did, that I thought was quite interesting, which the two things that don't seem to quite match, but I don't know whether you found this or whether you can shed light on this. So about half of the people they surveyed, the IT professionals, agreed with the statement, my organization has stalled or stopped digital transformation projects due to the threat of cyber warfare.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go on to say 3/4 agreed that boards of directors are changing their organization's culture towards cybersecurity in response to the threat of cyber warfare. So it's interesting that on the one hand, it sounds like boards are getting it and kind of, understanding that cyber, particularly with, cyber warfare, is something to pay attention to. On the other hand, it's saying that, they've stopped transformation projects because of the threat of this. So I wondered, Jamie, is there some way through that? It kind of seemed to be a bit of a clash for me, really.
If you think of boards running the overall vision and the overall strategy, and you think about the IT professionals doing the day-to-day actual operations, the board's going to be forward-looking. This is what we're going to do. This is our aspiration of how we're going to move things forward. But the guys on the ground are going to be going, okay, there is an increased risk in the air right now. So we need to focus on resilience rather than focusing on innovation. And it's as simple as that. It's a reprioritization of how the folks on the ground are going to be running the day-to-day operations.
Wow.
There's always inherent risk with new projects. It might not work. It might impact production. Anything new that you're deploying, have we got the security right? And things like that. And so I think what's just happening there is a lot of organizations are taking a step back and saying, for the time being, in the current environment, the risk associated with doing new stuff doesn't quite work out for us. We'd be better off on focusing on improving our resilience. And it's like the old thing of, when we have a recession, everyone tightens their belts. They keep everything running to make it through to the other side, and then we can start spending money again and developing new things. And I think there's just a strong element of that to it, to be honest.
Yeah. Interesting. By the way, apologies, my internet connection may be slightly dodgy. If I am breaking up for people, apologies about that, but hopefully I'm coming through relatively loud and clear. Kevin, can I come to you on that? I mean, the picture Jamie's pointed out there, which in troubling times, turbulent times, people might do. They might think, well, okay, we were going to do this big IT project, this big cloud migration in the next few years, but you know what, let's just put that on hold for the moment, given the potential cyber war, the potential threats we've got coming in. Kevin, do you think that's fair enough, or can you see sort of risks around that approach?
I mean, the risk is obviously they lose momentum in the market again. So cybersecurity, like technical, we got to support the business aims, of course, and it's becoming frustrating for a lot of companies where the IT people come in who are as important as human, right? And then the cybersecurity team, and they lock down everything, take away admin rights from developers, or whatever else. In other words, they use just the rule right across from everyone in every department, because of course, the CISO's back, his job career is on the line, so it's easier for them. But it really doesn't help the business, because again, fair enough, they might have a secure architecture and no one's getting compromised, but again, that they're 50% down on their production or their sales because of this draconian measures taken in. But so again, what you need is obviously a board which can see, okay, but the reason for a lot of it is too, because the awareness, even since GDPR, of companies again, that the onus is being put back on companies to properly manage their data, properly manage the systems again. So again, and tech's becoming, even C-suites and whatever else, the directors become more au fait with technology. Again, it's like 10 years ago, where, still really, everyone reused their passwords 10 years ago. So again, we have this maturity happening. It just happens organically, of course, but we become very, very mature and sophisticated as a society again. So that we're seeing again, and now the repercussions financially with GDPR fines have forced companies. Hang on, just because we can put this database here of whatever on the cloud, but should we, because of the data breach? At the moment, we haven't been data breached on. There's only that little computer there, it's in a little network here. But if we put it into the cloud, we run, and then which department again? We're talking about government services again. So again, you can be cautious again. But the problem is again that ultimately cybersecurity is there to support the business process. In other words, to stop information being lost, to stop fines happening, to keep the business running, but not block daily activity for people who work in the company.
Yeah. Well, let's sort of move on more to the topic in hand. I mean, obviously, we're looking at sort of what's going to go on in 2023 and trends and so on. Obviously, one of the ones that we know is happening now is increased activity in Ukraine, and obviously the Western powers, US, Germany, and countries that are exporting German-made tanks, these Leopard tanks, shipping that material into Ukraine potentially for use on the battlefield, and Russia immediately responding militarily. We're going through these cycles of sort of ramping up of the conflict and so on, and occasionally dialing down low, not dialing down obviously as much as we'd all like. But Todd, I wanted to come to you on this. I mean, if something like this happens, it does look like there's going to be an escalation within the next few months. There's going to be maybe some kind of offensive by the Ukrainians when they get these tanks. Again, do you then sort of wait and work out what the sort of cybersecurity consequences of that might be because they're kind of unknowable, or immediately now are you thinking, right, okay, we need to be on our guard for what's going to go on the next few months?
Every company, larger companies, are thinking about their incident response. They're thinking about the business continuity. They're already doing weekly meetings about the Ukraine situation. They are planning this right now. They have already been doing scenarios. So, if two things I think are probably most what people are concerned about are unintended consequences. So you have an attack released into the wild that just spreads. That there's a 0-day vulnerability, as an example, coming at you. So that's definitely on people's radar. But back to your question, it's about being prepared now, taking the steps, thinking through this. What do? Do you have your systems in place? Do you have the right partners in place to handle the threat management? Not threat management, but the incident management if this event were to occur.
Jamie, you all right?
Sorry, I just had to move my leg. I was getting cramp. My chair creaked. It doesn't like me moving.
Fair enough, Jamie. If you need to get up and do some stretches, it's fine. We're all of that age where at least I am. Jamie, it's interesting. In the early days of the conflict, we did see this interesting reaction by Russian-originated cybercrime gangs, who seem, a lot of whom seem to be getting on board with the Russian effort, and frankly, whether they were using it as an opportunity to just do more of the old cybercrime activity they always did, or whether they were genuinely being patriotic, we don't know. But what's Extra Hop seeing in terms of that, in terms of the kind of cybercrime economy and how they're responding to the ebb and flow of the Ukrainian conflict?
Well, it's kind of interesting because before the conflict, there was a lot of collaboration and interaction between Ukrainian and Russian ransomware gangs. They worked together. And when this whole thing broke out, there was a flurry of activity between the gangs to restructure and reorganize and how they were going to do things. And the war kind of gave them a certain amount of cover. Some of them disappeared from sight and said, we're not working anymore. Others supposedly broke out into groups where they were going to refactor their tools and restructure their business and decide how they were going to go forward and things like that. And a lot of people were saying, oh, well, this is going to create conflict in the gangs because some of them are Russian, some of the Ukrainians are going to hate each other. That's not what we've seen at all. In actual fact, there appears to be enhanced collaboration between them because guess what? The authorities are no longer paying much attention to them. In some cases, the authorities in the Russian side are giving them cover, and in the Ukrainian side, they're just busy doing other things. They've got a war to prosecute rather than petty ransomware thieves. So that was a big, interesting change that we've seen. And we do try and keep an eye on the ransomware actors and the other people like the initial access brokers and people like that. it's a trend that we tend to watch more than anything. You don't always get deep intel on what people are doing unless you hear it from customers in the region or other partners in the industry. But the trends are very interesting to see what happens. Ransomware's not going anywhere. They're changing their business models in some ways, because was it you, Todd, or Kevin pointed out in a discussion we had yesterday that the number of people paying were going down. It's about 40% because of people actually saying, I don't want to fund these people who are possibly funding Putin. So yeah, things are changing, but that's always been the case with these people. They change their operations, they change their playbooks, they change the way they work to suit the prevailing conditions in the world. They're very, very clever like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I'm not sure that our Times Goblin can find it. Its Chainalysis figures came out talking about the drop in ransomware payments, which I think was where that 40% came from. And obviously Chainalysis generally know their onions. They're quite good at spotting all this kind of stuff. So, which is interesting. By the way, Jamie, I want to stay with you because on the future trends, you've been experimenting, I gather, with teissTalk, the AI invention engine, I suppose, would best to call it. What's been the results of that? And in terms of cybersecurity, where does it leave you?
So one of the interesting things for me about ChatGPT is we've been talking for over a decade about AI and how it's going to become very, very powerful. We've seen like call center, phone handling things that are doing that AI is running it, chatbots and things like that. There was a lad, I can't remember his name, but he did an online website that basically gave legal advice for handling parking tickets and things like that. And that was processed by AI. But there was never really the killer app, the one thing that was going to come out that showed that AI actually works and does good things. ChatGPT is that app. People like me who have been slightly cynical about the whole AI thing and the confusion that marketing has done over the past decade of AI and ML, I'm now convinced ChatGPT is amazing. I did a couple of experiments with it. I asked it to generate. So there was three things I did. First thing, I asked it to generate a script to use with Metasploit to exploit the Eternal Blue vulnerability, which should have been fairly simple. There's details about that all over on the internet. It generated it. It told me how to use it. I tested it and it worked perfectly. The next thing I asked it to do, but that was fairly easy. The next thing I asked it to do was write me a phishing email to target ex-Trop employees. And that was me being a bit naughty, frankly, but I wanted to see what it came up with. And the email was a bit basic, but it was correct. It did the trick. It would have worked for people who weren't paying attention. And then as the last experiment, because I was interested in this subject myself, I asked it to write code in C and Python, and I think C++ to generate RSA private and public keys using the RSA crypto methodology. And I don't have to do that because I've been reading about it recently. I was interested to understand how RSA works with primes and semi-primes and things like that. And the code was good. The first thing it did was it tried to cheat by using the OpenSSL libraries that already do a lot of the RSA implementation for you. And then I said, no, that's not good enough. Do it yourself. Don't use an open source library.
Oh, really?
And it wrote proper code that would do it mathematically perfect. And that impressed me. So if you think about how it can do that, it can enable people who don't have certain skills to do. It does the work for them. It does the homework. So think of script kiddies out there who want to attack systems but don't know how to. They've put some precautions in place with ChatGPT nowadays to stop it doing or giving you answers to things that maybe are a bit risky, but there are ways around that as well.
Interesting.
I'm convinced now AI is actually functional.
Thanks,
it's here to stay. And
really
imagine integrating that with a whole bunch of other systems.
Interesting. Thanks, Jamie. Kevin, I want to come to you on this because obviously the researchers that you're working with and then the students, at the university, you've got an AI, according to Jamie, that can write code. I mean, that's quite astonishing. How are you dealing with it in terms of an academic institution, and where does this leave the people you're dealing with who are going to be going into the industry in the future? Oh, you're on mute, I'm afraid, Kevin.
in academia generally, we have to form our questions so that they're not as obvious to an AI or a scraper. So that's one. But talking about Jamie there about the emails, actually, one of the dangers in cybersecurity with Chat GPT is, unfortunately, it will help the scumbags write emails, phishing emails, spear emails, which are actually perfect in grammar and
Right.
actually relevant. So that is a real worry, because even though it's so low tech, but email compromise is still one of the number one attack vectors, especially for ransomware again. So unfortunately, the emails will actually fool more of us again. But of course, we adapt, because thank God it's not artificial general intelligence yet. And again, the code thing is actually incredible, because unfortunately, tools always get better. The attacks always just get better, and then we release tools to people who may not have had the intelligence to actually, study for long in technical careers. It just makes it easier for these guns to try to manipulate people. But it is, I've actually been involved in NLP, natural language processing, which is a field of computer science, which is involved in a number of projects with one of the largest law firms in the world, Allen and Overy, actually, trying to, for many years now, go through corpuses, for instance, and extract in, natural legal terms or whatever else. So we're familiar. We've been watching this again, but it has exceeded most of the people I know in NLP, their expectations again, and we know the limitations as well. But again, just like attacks, technology like this will only get better, and people have creative means to create it. And a killer app could be just someone who builds on top of this, and someone else builds and plugs in something else, and we have a new ecosystem again, because it is novel, and ultimately any tool which allows humans to be fooled more easily is worrisome for cybersecurity.
Yeah, interesting. Stuart's put in a link to Marcus Hutchins, who, for those of you who don't know, Marcus Hutchins was famously the malware and reverse engineer who stopped the WannaCry cyber attack, and was then arrested in the US for his previous offences. Stuart says ChatGPT is a language model, understands the words, not the context, because it's using a base information base. We need to be aware / be ready for the poisoning of the well that we all use every day, which is really interesting. Todd, can I come to you on this? Because obviously there's AI for attack, which Jamie's talked about and Kevin's talked about. Is there possibilities of using either ChatGPT or equivalent technologies for defense and putting it into adversarial context?
To refer back to that report you mentioned earlier, Jeff, it's as easy it is to use ChatGPT, it's also going to be equally as easy for cyber criminals to use for nefarious reasons. It's both sides of the coin here, and they will scale this up. They will. You will see a scale up on attacks. You will see. You think it's bad now? Wait till they start automating this. These attacks coming at you, and we're not even talking about deep fakes. We're not even talking about how when you add this to voices and whole range of other activities, which means, all right, how do we plan for this from the defensive perspective? Because this is coming. I think everyone's going to realize this, and this is just a wake up call to say, hey, look, we are now here, and you can expect this to come around the corner real fast.
Yeah. Well, it does. I mean, Jamie, this does lead us on. Thanks to Todd for mentioning the deep fakes issue. I've always been a bit sniffy about this, about fake videos and fake audio of people's voices and so on. But I'm starting to see a few more headlines about this and a few more instances of people getting caught out where, they get a call from the CEO that sounds like the CEO, or they sometimes on a Zoom call with somebody who, there's an amazing clip on LinkedIn the other day of somebody doing a romance scamming exercise, and actually having an avatar say the words that the romance scammer wanted to say. What do you think, Jamie? Are you seeing a lot of this stuff at Extra Hop, or do you think it's still nascent, this trend?
Well, it's not something that we necessarily pay too much attention to at Extra Hop. The that kind of thing, deep thing, apart from it being academically interesting. But as an example, some of the things that are happening in deep fake are starting to move out now into broader industry. So, for example, I saw a story yesterday and a video yesterday about NVIDIA, one of their tools, NVIDIA Broadcast. So if you're looking at me at the screen now, my eyes are not looking at the camera. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at your view. NVIDIA Broadcast have got a new module that's coming out, which people are talking about maybe integrated into Zoom and other things like this, that will use AI to make my eyes now look at the camera. even though I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking at the screen, and I might be reading a script.
Yeah.
You having worked in television, you'll be familiar with auto cues on the cameras.
Exactly. Yeah.
But this is, I could be reading the script on my screen, and I'm reading, and my eyes are pointing down here, but it looks like I'm looking at you and the camera.
Yeah.
So, and that's using deep fake technology as well, but only on the eyes. So that technology is going to leak out into other areas. Some of it nefarious, some of it's actually useful and potentially valuable.
Yeah. Interesting. We had a question about ransomware earlier on. Apologies, James. The question disappeared, but the question was about a Hive ransomware site, dark website getting taken down. I just wanted to ask you about that, Kevin. Obviously, we've talked about ransomware payments going down. I wanted to come back to this because the question I didn't ask earlier was, if the ransomware gangs are just getting less money, it's not like they're going to pack up and go home and say, oh, well, that was a fun run. They've clearly got a lot of resources they're sitting on. And I wondered if you have a sense of where those ransomware gangs might go next. Do they deploy elsewhere, or do they move ransomware on? How's that going to shift?
Yeah, just again, while there's money in it, they will continue to do what they do. There'll always still be a fraction who pay up. I mean, that's where we get the phishing emails. It's only the 0.000, but there will always be people who kind of, even if they know the money's going to Eastern Europe, it'll just save them the heartache of trying to get back and rebuild their systems again. So unfortunately, there will always be people to pay, but it's becoming less and less lucrative. And also, the governments around the world the techniques again have been increasing again. So it's not as easy as people think again. Of course, when it comes to being a cyber criminal, really, ironically, the one thing you don't want is to be too successful in any heist, like the Colonial Pipeline. Again, that if you do something which really is so big and the money's coming in, you will be traced down and tracked. Everyone lets their guard down at some time. To go back to the fake AI, again, voice calls, there was the famous one that it came to light in the UK, the British Energy Company, where the CEO of the British Energy Company thought he was speaking to his boss in Germany, in Euler Group, and the voice came across. It had the German accent, it had the melody, and he transferred 220,000 euros. And it was only when the scammer came back the third time, saying basically using the same technique, that he realized something was fishy, but the money was gone. So therefore, in the future, we can't even trust. And then when you combine that with fake video, so we have the video call coming in, and it looks like your boss, it sounds like your boss, but it's not. We're going to have outside in a different channel simply voice passwords. So in other words, I can't trust the video, I can't trust my ears, but if you tell me the password that we agreed in the kitchen or in the conference room a year ago that only you and me know when it comes to big sums of money, say it or give me the symbol or go like this in a video, give me some pattern. Look, we're going to have an off pattern. And especially in the world going virtual, we can't trust. In a few years, you can't trust that this is me, or it could be one of my students filling in for me because I become so lazy. And we've scanned each other and he knows my inflections and whatever else. And he's even better than me, actually. So I come across, I've got my best PhD students sitting in for me now using fake AI, and I look like I'm flipping brilliant, So can we trust our eyes and ears in the future? So again, we evolve as a society.
Yeah. Interesting. There is some chat in the chat about whether I'm actually me or the teissTalk. I am genuinely me. You are getting the genuine article, maybe. Todd, can I come to you on this lastly? I just want to return to this idea of where ransomware gangs evolve next. Have you got sort of view on this? Something you've given some thought to, or what?
I'll just tell you, coming off a Web3 project recently. Picture a startup. Startups, when you have a tech startup, one of the hardest things they have is to get funds going through a tech startup. Typically, security isn't that great, and typically it takes a while to get a security maturity. Some of the Web3 projects I'm seeing have the same kind of startups, but a significant amount of cash in their coffers. So the point being is if you're looking at where the cyber criminals are going to spend their time, they're going to go after the easy fruit. They're going to go after taking advantage of a Web3 company and making the multi-million-pound payoff versus another normal company that isn't going to have a more mature security posture. So back to your question, they're going to find the lowest hanging fruits here and get the biggest returns, biggest bang for their buck. And right now, Web3 is way on their radar for sure.
Really? Wow.
Really on their radar.
Yeah, because of all the money being plugged into it. See?
But not only that, they're at least what I've seen, their security is like a startup. which is very different than a financial services startup, which is regulated by the FCA. Web3 is not regulated, so they're not even, there's no accountability, which is another reason why there's poor security.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this today. I mean, there's another NFT wallet theft, I think, recently. One of the big NFT collectors had their wallet breached, and I mean, it's huge amounts of money potentially gone missing. It did make me think, as people have, I think it's a wider picture here. Since the financial crisis, people are looking for other places to put their money and other investments. A lot of younger people you talk to just cannot see the point in banks anymore because the bank's interest rate is 0.01%. So they're putting the money elsewhere. So we're getting these immense stores of values in things like NFTs and, as Todd said, the Web 3.0 stuff. That's where value is flowing there. But it's really interesting because it's off the traditional finance scene. It's off the traditional finance sector. It's not regulated. It's not protected particularly well, but it's still a store of money. People are confused as to Bitcoin and NFT. So, well, that's where people are putting their money because banks aren't paying interest rates. Anyway, I'm going to go off my my high horse there. And I'm going to, as we're closing, actually, I'm going to award the teissTalk mug, the coveted teissTalk mug, to Laurie, who came up with, and I'm going to scroll up so I can get the actual, gosh, I had a lot of chat today. It's good. Sorry if I didn't get around to your comments in the chat, by the way. The mug goes to Laurie Gibbett, who said, Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the puppy clan, that's the best puppy name you came out with. I thought it was fantastic. So our Tice Goblin will get in touch with you to give you your Tice mug. But I want to thank all our panelists today. It's been a really interesting chat. That we've had Tom Wade, CISO at Lloyds Intelligence, Kevin Cohen, cybersecurity prof at Ulster University, and of course Jamie Moles, senior technical marketing manager at ExtraHop. Thank you to all of you folks for that. Also, we have got, as our Tice Goblins reminded us, we're going to be live in London on the 23rd of Feb. It's going to be a great event. The agenda is shaping up for that. We've got all of our old favourites and quite a few new favourites too coming along for that. So do click out the link, check out the link there and click that to get your tickets for that. And I will look forward to seeing you in person on the 23rd. It's going to be absolutely great. Next week is going to be talking about security awareness programs starting from scratch. So if you've no idea where to start, or if you want to overhaul the thing and start again, do join us. Got a good panel for that. Some good people who we've had on before. So fantastic. Look forward to seeing you all next Thursday. As I say, all our Tice Talks are archived on the internet on teiss.co.uk, so you can see them all there. But I'll wish Todd, Jamie, Kevin, and all of our viewers here a fantastic weekend. I'll see you again soon. Cheerio.